Hello beautiful souls, it's Tan back here again today with you on this Astrology, Human Design and Jinkies channel. And today I am filming for you from my new home. You can see this is my garden. It's lovely weather actually today. It's kind of like not so cold, but not super hot. I can just like sit and bask in the sun. I was thinking of doing like a house tour as well when our house is kind of done with the renovations. Let me know if that is something you would like to see, and I'd be happy to make a video for you guys there and maybe make a more exclusive version for the house tour on Patreon. So yes, I do now have a Patreon finally. If you guys want to dive deeper into your charts, there are lots of bonus videos that I am slowly editing and putting up through these months with you. You can maybe get cozy and watch something through the winter, which is exactly what I'm planning to do, is get cozy and make some videos for the winter. You can join me and our Awakening Club members on Patreon. I'll leave a link to that in the description box below. Current series that I am working on and will be coming up are aspects in the birth chart and the synastry and composite charts, the Gene Keys programming partner, as well as the Gene Keys spheres for each of the lines in each of the Gene Keys spheres, and other human design types of videos. All right, and today we are going to be continuing a very long and lost series in the Gene Keys, which is when we're going through each of the spheres, and I am sharing with you what each of the spheres in the Gene Keys mean, as well as sharing my own personal experience with my sphere in my Gene Keys profile. Today we are moving on to the IQ sphere in the Gene Keys profile. So I've done the life's work, evolution, radiance, purpose, the attraction sphere, and I've put a pause on that for a bit, but now I'm coming back and we're looking at the IQ. So the IQ sphere in the Gene Keys profile is kind of like your IQ, in a sense that it's an interesting way to use that word, but it does have a lot to do with your intelligence quotient, in a sense. But it does have a lot to do with your mind, your intelligence, we could even say. And the planet that's associated with this sphere is Venus. So this sphere represents Venus in your birth chart, translated into the Gene Keys, okay? So what is being said about the IQ sphere is that it is representing your imprinting from the age of 14 to 21. So this is your teenage years while you were growing up. So a really interesting way to see what has been imprinted within your blueprint is to look back at when you were 14 to 21 and to see, what kind of classes did you like to take in school? Who were you as a teenager, in a sense? And it's interesting because when you go to, high school and you're a teenager from this age, this is when we actually begin to observe the people around us. We begin to want to fit in, and we begin to, even in certain schools, have cliques, and we begin to have labels that we put on ourselves and other people. And the reason for that is because the IQ sphere is linked to the EQ, as you can see in the profile. The EQ is about your emotions, and it's represented by Mars. So what happens is that the EQ is an imprint from when you were 7 to 14. So we're kind of going backwards here, kind of counterintuitive. But the emotional imprint that happened to you at 7 to 14, like mainly that's going to be from your family and from when you first start going to school, that might have caused you some kind of pain or some kind of stress. And so you then, as become a teenager, you develop certain ways of thinking, certain mental patterns that you hope will help you to protect you from the emotions, to protect you from all the pain that you might have had. So an example of this might be, for example, let's say that when you were growing up from 7 to 14, you felt like left out for some reason. Something happened and you felt like left out, and that causes you a deep sense of loneliness. Maybe you are an only child, let's say, and you were left alone at home a lot. And that made you feel very lonely and left out and ignored. So what you do as a teenager is that you begin to develop your mind and you begin to think to yourself, I have to fit in. I have to fit in no matter what. I feel like this is kind of my example actually, but I'll talk a little bit more when I actually go through my own profile. So then you develop that mental pattern, and that mental pattern is to help you cope with, it's a coping mechanism, which means that it may not be who you really are. Maybe you are somebody that likes to stand out, but you've been telling yourself that you don't want to fit in, because otherwise, if you did stand out, then you would have the loneliness happening, and then you would have to deal with those emotional patterns from 7 to 14 years old. And the other interesting thing is that because the IQ represents Venus, and we tend to know Venus as being the planet of sensuality and pleasures, sometimes love, but I don't really like to look at Venus as love so much in that sense, but more in terms of pleasure and enjoyment of life and our self-worth, okay, and money. Venus really represents our self-worth and money. You know, how much are you going to charge for your services? That's depending on how you feel, what you feel you're worth. And so because the IQ is our mental patterns, the IQ can also represent what we think about ourselves. So in that example previously, it was this thought that you think that you must fit in. So you think that maybe you are weird or whatever, and so you have to fit in. And you may be alone, then you have to fit in. So that is what you are worth in terms of what your mind thinks you're worth. So it may not really be what you're worth and what other people see you to be worth, but it's what you think about yourself that matters. And so a lot of what we can do to improve our self-worth is really to think about ourselves differently. Is to really think about our bodies and our capabilities and our skills and our life, the gratitude that we have for our life, to think about all of these things differently. That can really change how much we love ourselves, how much we value ourselves, right? So some of the questions that is written in the Gene Keys Golden Path on the love sequence that I want to read out to you to help you to contemplate on your your IQ, is going to be questions such as, which subjects at school most captivated you? Which teachers caught your imagination? Which, if any, family members influence your mind, either as an inspiration or a reaction? And he recommends that you can create a mental tree of the influential relationships you had during this phase of your life. So that is a way to sort of like get in touch and reconnect with your teenage years again. If you are like looking at your IQ sphere, right, and you'll see the gene key there, you'll see that there's 3 different levels of energy. There's a shadow, a gift, a siddhi. You guys know this. And so if you're manifesting the shadow of your IQ sphere, what this tends to show, if you feel this is the shadow is happening in your life, it's showing us that you may not feel worthy of love. It's showing us that you may have a narrow way of thinking, that your way of thinking may not yet be broad enough to encompass love and forgiveness for yourself. And you may also notice that that shadow is what's going to emerge and what's going to manifest itself when you are emotionally triggered, because it's linked to the EQ. When you are feeling emotionally threatened or uncomfortable, you may resort to the shadow frequency if you're still in the lower vibration of it. So to really step into the gift of your IQ, what is required is a neural pathway rewiring. So it's really like to reprogram your brain. So it's really about thinking in a new way so that you think of yourself from a place of love and worthiness. You open your mind up to knowing that you are worthy of so much more. So it's kind of learning to be optimistic, you can say, in a sense. And this is really the sphere that leads to an open mind. And then in the siddhi is what will be pouring through your body into the world and into the universe. That word is what's pouring out. Once you have really opened your mind and you're living in that state, that is what is coming out into the branches like the leaves, the grass, it gets imprinted into every living being on this earth. Besides from the gene keys, you'll also see that there's a word related to it. So, for example, in my profile, I have gene key 8 for my IQ, and the word is called the practical mind. That is because it's in a particular line, and mine is the 5th line. So I'm currently in the process of making a series on each of the lines for each of the spheres in your whole genetic profile in the gene keys. And that is going to be available on my Patreon, plus other exclusive bonus videos on astrology and human design and gene keys will be all available there on my Patreon as well. So join us and the Awakening Club on Patreon. I look forward to seeing you there. If you want to dive deeper into yourself, I'll leave a link to that in the description box below. For me, how I've experienced my IQ, and I've actually done a little sort of like reflection with my soul sisters, I think 2 years ago. We were going through a lot of our spheres together. And some of the questions I remember answering when, from the book, which subjects at school most captivated you, what teachers caught your imagination. So I remembered that my most favorite subject in school was either visual arts or theater arts. And I remember that I was choosing to take IB courses, right, in high school. And we could only choose one art subject, so we couldn't do both visual arts and theater arts. And so I was very sad because I wanted to do both. But I ended up choosing visual arts instead of theater arts. So I spent 2 years building up my portfolio with paintings and sculptures. And then at the end of my high school years, I was displaying in like a little gallery in the school. But then something happened. And I remember this very well. Why I went from style, the gift of the 8 into mediocrity, was when I wanted to continue to pursue my arts passion in university, but I wanted to do it abroad. And my dad said to me that he wasn't going to pay for that, not because he didn't have money to pay, but because he thought it wasn't necessary to have a bachelor's degree in fine arts abroad. He thought I could just study in Thailand. Why did I have to go abroad? But I had these universities that I really wanted to attend. But he said, you have to get a scholarship to do that. And immediately my mind went, it's too late, because it was too late. I couldn't get a scholarship that year. So I was thinking to myself, I have to wait next year, which means 2 things. First, I would be behind my friends, and I would be an outcast. I wouldn't fit in. I would be like different because I would be slower. But what was actually underneath all of that is that I didn't want to try for a scholarship because I was afraid I couldn't get it. Because what if I tried to get a scholarship and I couldn't? To me, that would mean I was not good. To me, that would mean I was just afraid. I was just afraid of how I would feel to know that I wasn't good enough to get a scholarship. That kind of made sense. And so I settled so I was thinking of myself as not worthy of getting a scholarship. And that's really dropping into that shadow of the IQ, because when I thought to myself, I'm not worthy of getting that scholarship, I then just stayed in Thailand. And I chose a university, which was a really good university in Thailand. It was the number 1 university in Thailand. It was Chulalongkorn University. But they didn't have a fine art studies in English. And for me, I would prefer to study in English because I've studied in English all my life. To switch to then studying in Thai would be like so hard. So they, however, had a architecture and design program available in English in that university. So I thought, I'll do architecture and design. It was like not the best choice, not the number 1 choice. It was a choice of mediocrity because I settled for thinking that that is all I was worth. So I studied it and found out I didn't like it. So I studied for 4 years and I just hated architecture. It's not what I wanted. So I left university. I graduated from university, of course. But then I had not been doing art already for 4 years. So it was really hard for me to get back in the game. And so then I started doing other jobs when I left university, being a journalist, being an English teacher, which were just all things that I felt didn't really allow me to step into my style and exquisiteness. And then I began to have relationships in my life that were not worthy of me, because at that time, I didn't think I was worthy of anything more. And so all the choices that I was making in my life was mediocre. It was me thinking, I'm a 5 when I should be thinking I'm a 10, but I thought I'm a 5. So everything in my life was, I choose a 5 level relationship instead of a 10. I choose a 5 level career instead of a 10. So that's how the 8 can kind of manifest. And that's how I've experienced the manifesting in my life. And I think once I finally told myself that I'm no longer going to view myself as not worthy, I started putting myself out there. I started making YouTube videos. I started trying to shine in the world and being different and not being afraid to live a unique and different life. Even though, a lot of people were like, at the beginning, wondering why I was leaving my full-time job to make YouTube videos. A lot of people, especially my mom, but also some of my friends were also confused, but they all supported me. And I have really great friends, and I really appreciate them for supporting me all of this way. And, I think that in my generation, a lot of us have gate 8 actually in my generation, and the 1 as well. So it makes it easier, I guess, for them to understand that. And I have the whole 8-1 channel as well. So, there's a bit of a blessing there too. And I think after a certain amount of time, my mom has just kind of understood what I was doing, and now I never want to settle for less again. And I'm very grateful that I'm worthy of this home. I'm worthy of this huge garden, and I'm worthy of this abundance that the universe gives me every day. And if there's one thing you want to take away from this video, is always tell yourself that you are worthy. You are worthy of abundance. You are worthy of love. You are worthy of the best. You are worthy of being treated like a queen. You are worthy of being treated with all the love in the world. You are worthy of self-growth. You are worthy of healing. You are worthy. You are so worthy. All right, so the next task is going to be to dive deeper into the lines involved in this sphere, which is something that I will be making videos on my Patreon as bonus and exclusive videos in our community. So join me there if you want to dive deeper into each of the spheres of your Gene Keys profile, as well as aspects in your birth chart and other parts of your blueprint, like the Gene Keys programming partner. All right, I'll leave a link to the Patreon in the description box below. And if you're interested in getting a reading, then head over to hyphensoul.com, which is my website with me and my soul sisters. And I'm sending you guys so much love today. Mwah, many kisses. Bye.